Hello, welcome to this video about using the Yahoo Fantasy API for Python. First of all, thank you so much for checking out this video, and I hope you will learn something from it. My name is Rodel, and I'm a software developer / guitar enthusiast. Before we proceed, I would kindly ask if you can please help and support me by subscribing to my channel and liking this video. In 2020, I was introduced to NBA Yahoo Fantasy, and I got hooked right away. Now for those of you who are playing Yahoo Fantasy Sports, I believe you might be able to relate to one of my challenges. That is, waiting until 12 midnight to drop a player who just played the previous day. Replace that player with another one using NBA Fantasy App. You do this because if you wait a bit later in that day, it's possible another team will get the player that you wanted. So often, I would stay awake at midnight to drop a player and be the first one to get the best available player. Since I'm a developer, I thought maybe there's a way to automate this. So I discovered Yahoo Fantasy API. It shows a web service for developers that allows them to connect to an online service and perform several tasks like adding and dropping players, getting the weekly roster, and so on. For those that are not aware about API or web services, they are simply URLs that return some data. You can even connect to some of these URLs directly from your browser. A good example is the data on your weather app on your phone. This data comes from an API. Most, if not all, of the data on your Yahoo Fantasy phone app comes from the Yahoo Fantasy API. In terms of Yahoo Fantasy API, below is an example of such URL which allows you to retrieve the list of players on the 10th week of the season. Calling this web service API will return data similar to what you see on the right of the screen, which contains the list of players in your team for that week. But don't get me wrong, that URL is not the only thing that you need. There are still some things that is needed, which includes authentication and initialization. The greatest challenge with the Yahoo API, at least for me, was the documentation that was provided online. For me, it was a challenge to find documents and examples online that I could easily grasp and follow through. So I decided to look for other options. That's when I bumped into the Yahoo Fantasy API Package, Python. Python is a programming language that is robust. Python package is just a set of code that was written by a developer and can be reused by another developer, so we don't have to reinvent it. Speaking of Yahoo Fantasy API Package, we made several objects and functions related to Yahoo Fantasy available in Python. An example is the theme object. Under that theme object, there's a roster function available. To call it, you say theme.roster plus the week number, which will return similar data that I've shown in my previous slide. However, as mentioned in my last slide, you still need to lay down some groundwork to get going, which includes authentication again and initialization. The main advantage, at least for me, was that the documentation and examples online for this Python package was easier to understand and follow. Now before we begin with the actual demo, I would like to go through the prerequisites so that you'll be able to follow through the examples provided. For one, first of all, you'll need a Yahoo account. If you don't have one, I suggest you pause this video and create one. You can easily Google the instruction to create a Yahoo account. Second, you'll need an operating system that supports Python. In this video, I'm using Windows OS, but you can also use Mac OS or Linux, which also supports Python. Next, of course, you'll need to install Python. There's a section in this video that will guide you on how to install. Then, you'll need a Yahoo Developer Application Consumer Key and Secret. This is essential for connecting with the Yahoo Fantasy API. Don't worry about it for now, so we'll go through how to set it up in this video. Next, you'll need a code editor or a text editor. The basic one would be the Notepad, but feel free to use other apps like Notepad++, Atom. In my case, Visual Studio Code, which will be used in this app. Last one is just nice to have if you know some basic code. Of course, I'll try my best to get you through the examples even if you don't have coding experience. So having said that, let's get you going with the demo. Before you can connect to the Yahoo Fantasy API, you'll need to create a Yahoo Developer Application. This defines the application that you will build to connect to the Yahoo Fantasy API. This will also generate the consumer key and consumer secret, which is similar to a username and password that you will use to connect to the API. Ensure that you store the key and secret on a secure location. So the first thing that you need to do is go to Google and search for the term Yahoo API Key. So this will return the match for getting started -Yahoo Developer Network. Click on that to go to the page that provides instruction on how to configure the Yahoo Developer. On this page, we'll click on the link that says Create an Application. That's on step 2, which will take you to the Create Application form. On the Create Applications form, we need to specify the application name. In this case, we'll just say Fantasy App. Feel free to specify your own application name. Then, we'll specify the description. So in my example, I'll just say Fantasy App Automation. The next, we specify the homepage URL and redirect URI. Since we are not building a website, we'll just put in a dummy URL for the two fields. Next, we select the API permissions to grant to this app. We will select Fantasy Sports. Selecting this checkbox will show additional options for type of access that is needed. Ensure that you select Read/Write from the options, which will allow us to do some write operations like changing of theme settings, adding, dropping of players, so on. So after that, you can click on Create App. This will create the application for us. Once the application has been created, you will see the app ID. But the most important information that you will need here is the client ID for the consumer key and the client secret for the consumer secret. You can bookmark this app information page in your browser. And you can also copy these values somewhere and save it to your computer. We will get back to them shortly. The next part of this demo shows how to install Python. So from Google, search for the word Python. Make sure that you open the result that came from the python.org website. In this demo, I'll skip the ads and look for the search result that came from python.org. In this search result, I'll click on the Downloads section, which should take me to the Downloads Python page. So in my case, since my version of OS is Windows, I'll be downloading the Python for Windows. Go ahead and click on that download button. Once that download is done, run the package that was downloaded. This should open up the Python installer wizard. Before you proceed with the installation, ensure that you click on the option that says Add Python to Path at the bottom, which will allow you to call the Python anywhere from the Windows command. When you are done, click on Install Now. For the sake of this demo, I have speed up the installation progress. This should not take very long to do the install. Once the install is done, you will get a message that setup was successful. Close the installer window once that is done. To verify that Python was installed successfully, go to the Start menu and search for Python, which should return the latest version of Python that was installed in your computer. Another way to validate that this is to open the Windows command prompt and type py and press enter. This will open up the Python interpreter app showing the version of Python installed in your machine. Congratulations, you have successfully installed Python. Then, we'll need to install the two Python packages. First, let us search for the Yahoo OAuth package. OAuth, or Open Authentication, is a way that Yahoo authenticates and grants access to users and apps that are accessing their API service. From Google, look for the term Yahoo OAuth API Python. From the search results, find the one that was returned by pypi.org and click on it to open the Yahoo OAuth package information page. For now, let us keep this page aside and let's open another tab and search for the Yahoo API package. From Google, look for the term Yahoo Fantasy API Python. From the search results, look for the one returned by pypi.org and click on it. This will take you to the Yahoo Fantasy API Package information page. From the package information page, copy the command on top that says pip install Yahoo Fantasy API. You can either highlight the text and copy it, or click on the copy to clipboard icon directly, which is what I have done. Open up the Windows command prompt and paste that command into the command prompt and press enter. This will install the Yahoo Fantasy API package to your computer. Once the install is done, we will go back to the other tab which has the Yahoo App package information. From that page, copy the command on top that says pip install Yahoo App. Similar to the last package, you can click on the copy to clipboard icon directly. Open the Windows command prompt again and paste that command into the command prompt and press enter. This will install the Yahoo App package to your computer. Finally, let us get our hands dirty writing some code. So as I said in the beginning of this video, you'll need a text editor or code editor. I'll be using Notepad and Visual Studio Code in my example. The first thing that we need to set up is authentication and access. So we will go back to Google and search again for the term Yahoo App API Python. Open the search result from pypi.org that says Yahoo App to open the package information page. This page contains several useful information about the Yahoo App package, including the guide on how to set up the authentication. There are several things we need, but the most important one is the consumer key and the consumer secret. This is similar to a username and password, which will be used to connect to the Yahoo API. So we need to retrieve the consumer key and consumer secret of the Yahoo API app that we created in the first section of this tutorial. I hope you have saved the consumer key and consumer secret somewhere in your computer, or at least bookmark the app information page in your browser so you can go back to it. But don't worry, you can always go back to the first section of this video about the Yahoo app creation if you need to. Next, we need to grab the OAuth2JSON configuration parameters from that page and copy that to a text editor like Notepad. Yahoo API supports the two versions of OAuth, OAuth 1 and OAuth 2. In this example, we will be using OAuth 2 to connect to Yahoo. So let us scroll to the middle of the page and look for the OAuth 2 section. Let's copy those JSON parameters from OAuth 2 section. Make sure you copy everything including the opening and closing curly braces. Then open a blank Notepad window and paste those parameters into Notepad. We need to clear out those values from the example. We need to empty the value of the access token, the consumer key, the consumer secret, and lastly the refresh token. Let us leave the token time and token type value as is. Next, we will grab the consumer key value from our Yahoo App info page. Same goes for the consumer secret. Let us grab that from the Yahoo App info page. If you save those values in your computer, you can copy them from wherever they are saved. Let us now save this file. In this example, I'm saving everything to my local folder path under C proj YFT, which means Yahoo Fantasy Tutorial. In Notepad, when saving this file, make sure you select all files from the file type and specify the file name as ooauth2.json. Since that file already exists in my local folder, I'm just going to overwrite it. For simplicity, and as first part of videos of the series, I'll be showing in this example how to connect to the Yahoo API and then grab your team roster. However, in my next videos, I'll be showing other cool stuff like getting player stats, adding and dropping players, and also how to automate it. So I'll open Visual Studio Code from my computer, then I'll create an empty file by going to the File menu and then selecting New File. Then I will save this file by going back to the File menu and then selecting Save As. I will specify the file name as fantasy_tutorial.py. In Visual Studio Code, make sure you select the file type as Python. Then let us save the file. First thing that we need to do in our code is to include those two Python packages that we downloaded and installed a while ago. Those are the Yahoo App package and the Yahoo Fantasy API package. First, we include the Yahoo OAuth, and we're going to only import the OAuth2 libraries because we're just using OAuth2. Please note that OAuth2 is case sensitive. For the Yahoo Fantasy API package, we're going to import everything, but this time we're going to give it an alias of YFA so that calling this library will be easier and we don't have to type the full name of the library when we call it. Next, we need to connect and authenticate to the Yahoo API. I'm just going to add a comment before we write the code, so we will know what it is for. So in Python, we use a hash symbol to specify a comment. We will initialize the OAuth2 connection by saving the connection to a variable called sc. The first two parameters are for the consumer key and consumer secret, but they are already specified in our ooauth2.json file, so we will set those two parameters as none. The last parameter is for specifying the name of the ooauth2.json file, so we type in from_file equals ooauth2.json in single quotes. For now, let us save this file and let's see the Yahoo authentication in action. Let us open Windows Command Prompt and ensure to change to the directory where we have stored the files using a cd command. I'm already in that folder, but I'm just showing you here. I'll also clear my Windows Command Prompt by typing CLS, press enter. To run the Python script, we simply type py and then the name of the Python script. So we type py space fantasy_tutorial.py and press enter. This will open up the Yahoo sign-in screen, which will request for our Yahoo credentials. Don't worry, your Yahoo username and password won't be stored in your computer. Yahoo is just doing a one-time validation and will save and use a security token on the ooauth2.json file next time you connect. So I'll go ahead and enter my username and click next. Then I will enter my password and then click next again. If you've entered your credentials successfully, you will be provided with a verifier code. Copy this verifier code and go back to the Windows command prompt where we ran the Python code. You will see that this is currently asking for that verifier code as well. Paste that verifier code and press enter. If you don't get any error, this means that the authentication was successful. You can validate this by opening your OAuth2 JSON file. This time, I'm opening the JSON file in Visual Studio Code, but you can still open it in Notepad. You will see that the access token and the refresh token has been populated with values. This ensures that until the token expires, you don't have to log in again when you run the code and connect to the API. Now let us go back to the Python script and begin accessing the NBA Fantasy libraries and functions. The first object that we need to access is the game object. So again, I'll just add a comment before I write that code. Let us create a variable called GM, short for the game object. Then type equals, then YFA dot game. Then pass the SC connection object as the first parameter, and the second parameter we specify the sport code. In my case, I specified the sport code as NBA. You should be able to use other sport codes like NHL or NFL if you're playing other fantasy sports. After retrieving the game object, we need to get the league ID, which is the ID of the league that we want to access. So to find the league ID, we can access the league IDs collection under the game object. So I type in leagues equals gm dot league underscore IDs. Open and close parentheses. Let us display that leagues collection on the screen by calling the print function and specify leagues variable as a parameter. Save the code and let us go back to the command prompt and run the Python script again. Notice that next time when I run the Python code, I don't have to enter my Yahoo credentials and the league ID is displayed on the screen. If you have joined multiple leagues, you will see more than one league ID printed. To verify that you have the correct league ID, you can go to your fantasy league using a web browser. In the web browser URL, you will see the ID of your league. You can compare it to the league ID that was returned by the Python script that we just ran. It has some additional numbers at the beginning, but the last 6 numbers should be the same with the league ID from the browser URL. So copy that league ID, including those additional numbers. We'll be using that league ID to initialize the league object. So we will create an LG variable, short for league, and type equals GM, which is the game object, dot to underscore league, and pass in the league ID that we just copied. We will enclose it in double quotes. Next, we need to get our current theme key. The theme key is the identifier code for your theme. We'll do this by declaring a theme key variable and type equals LG, which is the leak object, dot theme underscore key, open and close parenthesis, which is a function to get the theme key. Before I proceed, let me just add some comments to those 2 lines of code that I just wrote. After we retrieve the theme key, we need to retrieve the theme object, which contains all the information and functions for a theme. We do this by declaring a theme variable and say equals LG dot to underscore theme and specify the theme key as a parameter. Lastly, we will retrieve the theme roster and print them on the screen. So we declare a roster variable equals theme dot roster, open and close parenthesis. This will retrieve the list of players in your team for the current week. Then we will call the print function and pass the roster variable as a parameter, so it will print the roster on the screen. Before I forget, let me show you another way to access the league ID. You can do this if you're certain that you only have one league. So instead of passing the league ID value, you can also access the first object in the leagues variable by using the leagues variable, then enclose 0 in square brackets. I'll just comment it out for now. So let us save the code and go back to the command prompt and run that Python code again. Before we run the code, let us clear the screen by first running CLS. Let us run the Python script once more. This time the script will print out the current roster in my team. So I have Steph Curry, Lonzo Ball, Russell Westbrook, Jason Tatum, Julius Randle, Jimmy Butler, and so on. If we go back to the NBA Fantasy web app and I open up my team, we can validate that the roster returned by the Python script for that week is correct. Alright, so that's it for now. Please note that you can also grab the sample code from the link in the description of this video. In my next video, I'll be showing how to add, drop, and trade players, and also view their stats. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thanks again for watching. Until next time.